Hello, people. Watchman blows the horn here, and I'm blowing the horn as loudly as I can to let people know what time it is, so they know what they ought to be doing. Welcome to this presentation, The Fall of Edom, which will spell the end of Western hegemony. We have shown in previous presentations who Edom is and who his descendants are, the ones who currently have dominion over the earth. It is very important that we know this because the Bible tells us that at the end, when or just before Yeshua arrives, Edom will fall. And then when Yeshua arrives, he will also bring utter devastation to the descendants of Esau, Edom. And so, in order for us to have a fuller understanding of who Edom is and who his descendants are, we need to go back and look at the four beasts that rise at the end of the age, the time in which we are currently living. And this time is elaborated upon in the book of Daniel, chapter 7, and the second book of Esdras, chapters 11 and 12. Daniel 7 speaks of the first beast, a lion, speaking of Great Britain, Babylon the Great, and the eagle wings, which speaks of the United States of America, the virgin daughter of Babylon. And it states that this lion had its wings plucked off, and it was raised up and given a human heart. And then we see the entrance of the second beast, the bear, which has three ribs in its mouth, three ribs ripped out of its neighbor, Ukraine, the regions of Donbass, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. And of course, this bear is told to devour much flesh, which probably speaks of the bear ripping the wings off the eagle. And so the eagle is expatiated upon in the book of Second Esdras, chapters 11 and 12. So we will explore the second book of Esdras, and we will consider what it reveals to us about the events that are about to take place on the face of the earth. And so, as we said, the eagle speaks of the descendants of Edom, Babylon, Neo-Egypt, Neo-Sodom and Gomorrah, the red people, the Caucasian world. The three heads refer to the United States of America, the greatest of the heads. In the middle, Russia, the head to the right, and the European Union, the head to the left. Those who currently have dominion over the face of the earth. And now we will explore what the second book of Esdras has to say about the eagle, the Caucasian world, the descendants of Esau, Edom, Rome, Western civilization.
I think reading it will be ideal. But before we do that, I like the etymology of, or going over some of the etymology of the word eagle, or just the different variants in languages. Like, for example, I speak Spanish, and so eagle in Spanish is águila. And that also is very similar sounding to the word agua, which is the word for water. And in Latin, eagle is aquila, and which is very similar to aqua, the color, or aquatics, right? Having to do with water or the sea. In fact, again, if you type in Google right now and type in sea eagle, what pops up but a bald eagle will be the image that you see. So it's a sea eagle. This is what we see appearing on the scene right away as Ezra begins this vision about a latter-day kingdom that he describes like an eagle. So we'll read it. So verse 1 of chapter 11 in the apocryphal text of 2nd Ezra reads, Then saw I a dream, and, behold, there came up from the sea an eagle, which had 12 feathered wings and 3 heads. So here we have the eagle coming up from the sea with 3 heads and 12 feathered wings. We'll get into those feathered wings and what they mean.
Second Esdras 11, verse 1. Then saw I a dream, and behold, there came up from the sea here speaks of humanity, an eagle which had 12 feathered wings and 3 heads.
And I saw, and behold, she spread her wings over all the earth, and all the winds of the air blew upon her, and were gathered together.
Second Esdras 11, verse 2. And I saw, and behold, she spread her wings over all the earth, and all the winds of the air blew on her, and were gathered together.
And I beheld, and out of her feathers there grew contrary feathers, and they became little feathers and small.
Second Esdras 11, verse 3. And I beheld, and out of her feathers there grew other contrary feathers, and they became little feathers and small. Of course, the feathers refer to the presidents of the Virgin Daughter of Babylon, the United States of America. And this is speaking of the contrary feathers, which were the small feathers, the ones on the wing on the left. In other words, these presidents act to the contrary of the interest of the center eagle. So this verse is telling us that the presidents on the left wing, or the feathers on the left wing, all act contrary to the interest of the center eagle. This calls into question Trump and Vance.
but her heads were at rest, and the head in the midst was greater than the other, yet it rested with the residue.
Second Esdras 11 and verse 4. But her heads were at rest. The head in the middle was greater than the other, yet rested it with the residue. Now these heads are spiritual entities, spiritual beings. They also refer to the agents of the fallen ones, the ones otherwise referred to as the deep state, the entities that actually control the Virgin Daughter of Babylon, Russia, the European Union, Canada, and most of the Western states. We will explain further later on.
So it continues. It says, "Moreover I beheld, and lo, the eagle flew with her feathers, and rained upon the earth, and over them that dwelt therein."
Second Esdras 11 in verse 5. Moreover I beheld, and lo, the eagle flew with her feathers, and rained upon earth, and over them that dwelt therein. In other words, the eagle has dominion over the earth. The eagle rules over the inhabitants of the earth, the descendants of Edom.
"And I saw that all things under heaven were subject under her, and no man spake against her, no, not one creature upon the earth."
Second Esdras 11 verse 6. And I saw that all things under heaven were subject unto her, and no man spake against her, no, not one creature upon the earth. In other words, once again, the eagle has dominion over the earth and the inhabitants therein.
"And I beheld, and lo, the eagle rose up on her talons, and spake to her feathers, saying."
Second Esdras 11 verse 7. And I beheld, and lo, the eagle rose upon her talons, and spake to her feathers, saying. So the eagle here speaks of the entity that actually controls the Virgin Daughter of Babylon, the deep state. In other words, these entities are the ones who invented democracy and who speak to the feathers, speaking of the presidents, saying, rule by course, one after the other, until it is time to usher in the end. As we said before, the feathers refer to the various presidents of the United States of America.
"Watch not all at once, sleep every one in his own place, and watch by course. But let the heads be preserved for the last."
Second Esdras 11 verses 8 and 9. Watch not all at once, sleep everyone in his own place, and watch by course, but let the heads be preserved for the last. In other words, the presidents are to take their turn one after the other until the time comes to usher in the end. And this end will be ushered in by the heads, the entities that govern the eagles and their agents, the ones who adhere to the principles of order out of chaos, the Freemasons, agents of the fallen.
This eagle, it rules and reigns over the 4 quarters of the earth. So it has global dominion, and it has 12 feathered wings. And these are what we refer to colloquially as those who study this stuff as long feathers, or just, the prophecy calls them wings, but I hardly hear anybody who talks about this prophecy calling these wings. It's just kind of it's an interchangeable word. It's the thing making the eagle have action and movement, is whether it's the feathers, the wings, it's feathered wings. Now it has 3 heads that are at rest, sleeping, which are preserved for the last. Now, additionally, there are contrary feathers that it mentions, and we'll also refer to these as little or short feathers. A lot of people probably have heard that already. Donald Trump or Joe Biden, they are considered short feathers in this prophecy, and we'll go over why. But this eagle, it tells the feathers to watch by course. So how do these feathers rule, or how does this eagle reign? Well, each one of these feathers is going to individually reign in succession. That's what it means by watching by course. So each of them are standing up to reign and then sitting down. And it goes over that in the next part. It gives you a little example here. So in verse 10, and I beheld, and lo, the voice went not out of her heads, but from the midst of the body. So that's a strange thing to point out, that the heads are at rest. They're not doing anything. And the voice that comes out to command these feathers is actually coming out from the voice, or from the body of the eagle. There's the interpretation later that'll explain this, where we'll go over that. But right now, we're just introducing that this is how the eagle speaks at the moment, to let these feathers kind of rule. Sounds a lot like democracy, if you ask me, right?
Second Esdras 11, verses 10 and 11. And I beheld, and lo, the voice went not out of her heads, but from the midst of her body. And I numbered her contrary feathers, and behold, there were 8 of them. Now, this says that the voice that speaks to the feathers to reign come out of the body. In other words, the body refers to the people. So it is the people who give the mandate to the feathers, or it is the people who elect the presidents, the feathers. At this time, the heads are not playing a significant role. They will play a more significant role at the end, as the prophecy states.
And I numbered her contrary feathers, and behold, there were 8 of them. So now we have a number to these contrary feathers that were mentioned previously. There are 8, which makes a total now of 20 feathers and 3 heads, if you're keeping count. Because there were 12 long feathers, now 8 contrary feathers are mentioned. And I looked, and behold, on the right side there arose one feather, and reigned over all the earth. So this is the first feather to be mentioned, ruling under this new kingdom of the eagle with the three sleeping or resting heads. I have an arrow here that points over. This is the number 1 feather, and it points to, on this big wing, which is actually the eagle's left side, but looking at it, it's our right side. This first feather is what it's pointing to. We'll identify which president that is. It's Herbert Hoover, not a big secret or surprise. But the second president, FDR, is actually the one who identifies why we start with Hoover. And continuing on reading the prophecy, we see why. So it says, and so it was, that when it rained, the end of it came, the first feather, and the place thereof appeared no more. So the next following stood up, and it rained and had a great time. So we have an arrow pointing from this verse. This next feather stands up, and it's the second one, and it has a great time. And what does that mean? Well, it kind of explains. It says, and it happened that when it rained, the end of it came also like as the first, so it appeared no more. Then came there a voice unto it and said. Now remember, the voice that came unto these feathers before, where did it come? From the heads or from the body? This came from the body. So I assume that this is coming again, the same voice coming from the body, which makes sense when we identify that what they're talking about here is the 22nd Amendment, an amendment to the Constitution ratified by Congress and the voice of the people, essentially. And what does that do? Well, it says, hear thou that hast borne rule over all the earth. So hear, FDR, hear, Franklin D. Roosevelt, this I say unto thee before thou beginnest to appear no more. So before you leave office, this is being said to this feather, which is true. This was presented and ratified while he was in office. So it says, there shall none after thee attain unto thy time, neither unto the half thereof. So what is the body telling this feather and all subsequent feathers by making this rule? It's saying nobody can have as many terms as you just had. Nobody can be president for as long as you just did. In fact, nobody's going to get half as long as you did. Or like that's as far as they'll go. Now look at this. If you just do the AI result on FDR, it says FDR served as the 32nd president of the United States from 1933 to 1945, a total of 12 years and 39 days. He is the only president to have served more than 2 terms. And his 4 terms in office make him the longest serving president in U.S. history. Up to that point, it was just kind of a gentleman's game, a nod to George Washington likely, that you served 2 terms and you were out. Now, people had ran for 3 terms previous to FDR, but they lost. I think one of them was Teddy Roosevelt. Another was, I can't remember. But FDR runs and wins, and not just 3 times, but 4 times. And here it says, nobody, because of the 22nd Amendment, is allowed to serve that long again. There are term limits that are placed on presidents for 2 terms.
And so we identify the first president using the prophecy which speaks of the second president, the second feather. And then this takes us all the way up until we get to the last feather on the right wing, President Obama. And of course, it tells us that there are 8 contrary feathers, 6 on the other wing, which means the last 2 on this wing were also contrary feathers. In other words, they acted in a manner that wasn't in the best interest of the virgin daughter of Babylon, the center head of the eagle.
So that's where that stops. Now, verse 18 and 19 to finish off this little quadrant. Then arose the 3rd feather. So here's this arrow 3 going to the next feather in sequence. And reigned as the other before, and appeared also no more. So everything seems to go back to normal. So it went with all the residue, so all the rest here, residue. Like, it makes sense now that it pops up, like Mitch was saying here later, with the other feathers as well being mentioned, the residue or the rest. So
yeah, it's like everybody else.
It arose the 3rd and reigned, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. As that every one reigned and then appeared no more. So recap. The only thing that changes here in our little bullet points was that now we have a number for the contrary feathers, that there are 8 of them. And then we have this second rule that's imposed, that the second feather rules twice as long as any other, and nobody else can do that afterwards. So moving on, verse 20 of the vision. So it keeps marching forward. The body, we have 3 presidents going down. Now what happens next? Then I beheld, and lo, in process of time, the feathers that followed stood up upon the right side, that they might also rule. And some of them ruled, but within a while they appeared not. For some of them were set up, but ruled not. I think we have another question here on this one.
Yeah, someone just asked, what's the meaning of verse 21?
And to me, this is going to be an indication which the vision itself explains later, and especially in the interpretation. But this is what I believe an allusion or a reference to JFK and Nixon who would have been elected and set up, but didn't get to rule and reign in their way, that ultimately they were forced to comply with the agenda of the sleeping or resting eagleheads, or the eagle itself, the machine, the military-industrial complex, the deep state.
Nixon is mentioned in the book, None Dare Call It Conspiracy. It talks about Nixon's presidency, where he ran for president and failed. Like he was at the end of his career. He goes to Europe for a year or two, comes back a multimillionaire, and becomes the most popular president that ever was. And although he ran as a conservative, everything that he passed was not conservative. And so that's an excellent example of one who was set up, but it wasn't his leadership. He was just a figurehead for the powers that be.
So that's what I believe. I believe it's an allusion to those guys, because it's strictly here in verse 20, I believe, talking about this right side, because then it goes on to talk about the other side. So that's what I believe. Those are specifically talking about 5 and 7 here, Nixon and Kennedy. But I have included, just because in verse 20 it mentions again that phrase, in process of time, that same verse that again seems to be coming up in every episode here of Watchmen. In looking at who is the secret combination, who are they, we should be looking for things that are working in process of time. Slow rolling, slow moving creeps. And that's definitely this. So let's continue. In verse 22, it says, after this I looked, and behold, the 12 feathers appeared no more, nor the 2 little feathers. So there's 14 feathers mentioned, and that's why there are 14 feathers here on this first side. And oddly enough, when you finish the top of counting all 14 presidents from Herbert Hoover all the way up, you end on Barack Hussein Obama. And so from him, you have a drastic shift in the political atmosphere, in the global atmosphere, actually, right? When Donald Trump becomes the first feather on the next set of wings here. But before that, it kind of has a little commentary here. It says, and there was no more upon the eagle's body, but the 3 heads that rested, and the 6 little wings. So here you have wings again being interchanged with feathers. But all you have left, these guys are crossed out, this whole side, these 14, and you've got 6 short feathers or contrary feathers left, and 3 eagle heads. So every president of the United States after Barack Obama is going to be kind of a thorn in the side of the agenda of the deep state moving forward. That's what I take from this, being that all remaining wings are contrary feathers.
And so we understand that the feathers on the left wing are all contrary feathers. They will all act in a manner that is detrimental to the interests of the center eagle.
So this then I saw also, that 2 little feathers divided themselves from the 6 and remained under the head that was upon the right side, for the 4 continued in their place. So plot twist, not all 6 of them end up actually being contrary. In fact, 2 of these become double-siding backstabbers, and they go and hide under the right side head, who ends up being the last head alive, actually. So they pick right in terms of picking a racehorse for who's going to end up coming on top of the secret combination battle that these heads will get into as things start to explode for them.
So 2 of these contrary feathers go and hide underneath the head to the right. In other words, they are double agents, so to speak. And the head to the right is none other than Russia. It's interesting how Trump keeps being linked to Russia. Please stick with me. Second Esdras 11 verse 24. Then saw I also that 2 little feathers divided themselves from the 6, and remained under the head that was upon the right side, for the 4 continued in their place. So the 2 that reign together. And of course, you can't have two presidents reigning at the same time. So this must be referring to the president and vice president, Trump and Vance. According to this verse, these two individuals are treacherous dealers. They are actually agents of Russia. I suppose this would explain most of their policies, because what they really want to do is destroy the virgin daughter of Babylon, and yet they have deceived so many into believing that their aim is to do the contrary. Exactly what Jesus told us would take place. The great deceivers.
These two little feathers, it's alluded to here in the prophecy, they separate themselves, and they played probably being on the side of anti-globalist now, but in the future they're going to backstab us and take things into their own hands, it sounds like. So I kind of keep my eyes open for now. Who's saying they're my friend and against globalism now, against communism, against socialism, but who could potentially be my enemy in the future? I don't get too attached to any figure now. Like, that's kind of how I'm seeing this as well. That anybody popping up in the near future, presidentially, geopolitically, whatever it might be, you got to look at them with an extreme side eye and a clear vision of what this prophecy says.
Remember what Yeshua said? For many shall come in my name, claiming I am he. The time draweth near. Go ye therefore not after them. The false Messiah figure, the one who comes and deceives everyone, that he will bring peace and that he will make America great again. The great deceiver. Yeshua tells us not to follow him. Because this, in actual fact, is the seventh manifestation of Apollyon, the sun god, the rider on the white horse of Revelation 6, the one spoken of by Yeshua in Matthew 24, false Messiah figure, who will deceive many. That is why the Bible refers to him as the treacherous dealer and spoiler. You see, he is a great deceiver, and he is leading the world into great destruction. And as I stated in my analysis of the 2019 Economist cover, which I did and posted on this channel almost 7 years ago now, where I stated Donald Trump a construct? Is he an agent of Russia and China? As I believe that is what this character, Ingersoll Lockwood, was trying to tell us in his book, The Last President, where he links Donald Trump to Russia, and he seems to suggest that Trump is the last president of the virgin daughter of Babylon. I suggest you find this book and read it. It's interesting how this book seems to link Trump to Russia, as we can see from this clip. And so, could it just be a coincidence that on Trump's coat of arms, it just so happens to be a double-headed phoenix? Interesting that we also find this double-headed phoenix on the Russian coat of arms. And on the Russian coat of arms, this double-headed phoenix is holding the orb and the scepter, an indication that Caucasian Russia is descended from Edom. I suppose this is just a coincidence. I suppose it's also just a coincidence that on the Economist magazine cover, Planet Trump came out at the end of 2016. Trump happens to be holding the orb and the scepter, a symbol of dominion. Just a coincidence, I presume. You see, Trump is the treacherous dealer, the one who will bring about the fall of Edom, virgin daughter of Babylon, USA, when he brokers the Abraham Accord, the covenant with death, the covenant between Saudi Arabia, death, and Israel. This is what will take peace from the earth and bring calamity.
So going on, the first feather or wing on this opposing side, it begins here in verse 26 to describe it. It says, "And I beheld, and lo, there was one set up, but shortly it appeared no more." So this would be Mr. Donald Trump.
Second Esdras 11 verse 26. And I beheld, and lo, there was one set up, but shortly it appeared no more. Trump's first term in office.
And then it says in verse 27, "And the second was sooner away than the first," who would be Joe Biden. Now,
Second Esdras 11 verse 27. And the second was sooner away than the first. Joe Biden.
here you have Donald Trump is removed, and then Joe Biden's removed sooner than the first. "And I beheld, and lo, the two that remained thought also to reign in themselves."
Second Esdras 11 verse 28. And I beheld, and lo, the two that remained thought also in themselves to reign. This speaks of two thinking to reign. Of course, we know two presidents can't reign together, so these second set of two must be speaking of a president and vice president, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, who have succeeded Joe Biden.
"And when they thought so, behold, there awakened one of the heads that were at rest, namely, it was in the midst, for that was greater than the two other heads." So the middle head wakes up. "And then I saw that the two other heads were joined with it." So here we have the revelation of all three heads, essentially.
And so now we come to the heads, the eagle heads. As I said earlier, these heads represent the agents of the fallen ones, the Freemasons, the ones who reign, rule via secret societies. Remember that the prophecy stated that the heads were initially at rest. Well, now that we have come to the end, the heads apparently wake up and devour the two who intend on reigning. That would be Donald Trump, and J.D. Vance. As I said, these heads represent the rebel fallen angels, Genesis 6, who had their leader, Azazel, the one referred to as Satan. Azazel, incidentally, is the same as Seorim, singular, Seir, Hebrew meaning hairy beings or shaggy beings, the god of the Edomite people. The god who is depicted in a particular posture, as above, so below, Azazel, Baal, Allah, Behemoth, Baphomet. Note Washington in the same posture, the apotheosis of Washington, Washington becoming a god. Also the magician, Jupiter, Zeus, the Seir, the Edomite god. You see, this entity known as Satan has many names and is depicted in many forms. He is known as Azazel, Baphomet, Behemoth, the one who was in Eden. I would like you to go to the book of Genesis and look up the meaning of the word that was used for cattle, speaking of the serpent in Genesis, the word behemoth, and study the description. He's also known as Beelzebub, Baalzebub, Baal. It is Satan. And you see, most don't realize that Azazel is the one who birthed Cain, the original son of perdition, the one who was cursed to manifest himself on the earth a total of 8 times, the one who goes into the abyss and periodically comes on the earth, the being with many names. Cain, in his first manifestation, Nimrod, who possessed Esau, Gilgamesh, Horus, Phoebus, Apollo, Helios, Sol, Abaddon, Donald Trump. And as the 8th and final manifestation, Imam al-Mahdi, the Islamic rightly guided one. It is a spirit, and it is this spirit that rules the Edomite kingdoms. It is this spirit that is the beast, which is the eagle. It is this spirit who has manifested as all the beasts. And this spirit is represented by the heads, the eagle heads, who are now about to awaken and usher in the end times. The little horn and god of the Edomites, god of the Freemasons, the builders, the agents of the fallen ones who rule via their secret societies. As Edom and his descendants rule through secret societies, the Freemasons, the builders, the ones who destroy and build back better order out of chaos. The ones who have dominion.
And behold, the head was turned with them that were with it, and did eat up the 2 feathers under the wing that would have reigned. So this 3 and this 4, the ones immediately to follow Joe Biden, 1 and 2, are eaten up. Whatever that means. I assume that means that they're not even set up to rule like Nixon and Kennedy, as it was referred to previously. But this eating up by the head is a different pattern in the prophecy. It's obviously going to be something different.
Second Esdras 11 verse 29. And when they so thought, behold, there awakened one of the heads that were at rest, namely it that was in the middle, for that was greater than the 2 other heads. A greater principality, perhaps. This seems to suggest that this head will devour Trump and Vance. I believe this will happen with the advent of World War III. Second Esdras 11 verse 30. And then I saw that the 2 other heads were joined with it. So now the other principalities awaken, the other spiritual entities, the fallen ones, and they all wreak havoc. Second Esdras 11 verse 31. And behold, the head was turned with them that were with it, and did eat up the 2 feathers under the wing that would have reigned. In other words, these spiritual beings, these fallen ones, will devour or consume the 2 feathers that would have reigned. Trump and Vance.
So they didn't reign. It says, but this head put the whole earth in fear, and bare rule in it over all those that dwelt upon the earth with much oppression. And it had the governance of the world more than all the wings that had been. So when this takes over, when this thing happens, when Joe Biden is removed and whatever takes his place, it will put the earth in fear more than the earth has ever been in fear. And think about all the world wars we've already faced. Whatever's going to happen, that's why I think it might be the war trigger, like a World War III, and getting us involved in a modern warfare like that.
Indeed, at this time, that is what will happen. Soon, World War III will break out, and destruction will come upon Edom. But then after the wars, Yeshua will arrive. And according to Jeremiah, he will also bring great destruction upon Edom. Jeremiah 49 verse 8. Flee ye, turn back, Dwell deep, O inhabitants of Dedan, for I will bring the calamity of Esau upon him, the time that I will visit him. So, the Lion of the tribe of Judah visits the earth when Edom is destroyed. Jeremiah 49 verse 9. If grape gatherers come to thee, would they not leave some gleaning grapes? If thieves by night, they will destroy till they have enough. Speaking of the destruction of Edom. Jeremiah 49 verse 10. But I have made Esau bare. I have uncovered his secret places, because Esau or Edom hides himself, rules through secret societies, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not. Speaking of the destruction of Esau or Edom. Jeremiah 49 verse 11. Leave thy fatherless children, I will preserve them alive, and let thy widows trust in me. Jeremiah 49 verse 12. For thus saith the Lord, Behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup have assuredly drunken, and art thou he that shall altogether go unpunished? Thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it. Speaking of Edom, when the Lord visits him at the end of the age. Jeremiah 49 verse 13. For I have sworn by myself, saith the Lord, that Bozrah shall become a desolation, a reproach, a waste, and a curse, and all the cities thereof shall be perpetual wastes, all the cities of Edom. Jeremiah 49 verse 14. I have heard a rumour from the Lord, and an ambassador is sent unto the heathen, saying, Gather ye together, and come against her, speaking of Edom, and rise up to the battle, speaking of the destruction of Edom. Jeremiah 49 verse 15. For lo, I will make thee small among the heathen, and despised among men, speaking of what the Lord will do to Edom when he comes. And Jeremiah 49 verse 16 gives us one of the reasons why Edom is destroyed. Thy terribleness hath deceived thee, and the pride, LGBTQI+, of thine heart, O thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, that holdest the height of the hill, though thou shouldst make thy nest as high as the eagle, the link to Edom, I will bring thee down from thence, saith the Lord, because of their pride. Desolation will come. The worst and safest countries for LGBTQ plus activity, mainly in the Edomite lands, the pride of Edom. Gay marriage around the world, mostly in the lands of Edom. Pride. You see, the descendants of Edom, the Edomite lands, pride themselves on their love and affiliation for what the Lord refers to as abomination, transgender rights, mainly in the Edomite lands. We also find that the practice of unrestricted abortion also mainly takes place in the Edomite lands. Abomination. Though thou shouldst make thy nest as high as the eagle, I will bring thee down from thence, saith the Lord. Isn't it interesting that the descendants of Edom, who have dominion, are also the ones who have dominion in the heavens, just like the eagle? Space Force. Though Edom should make his nest as high as that of the eagle, the Lord will bring it down from thence. Russia, just like the eagle, also has dominion over the heavens. Russia threatens to shoot down Western commercial satellites used to help Ukraine. The Lord will bring them down, even though they make their nests in the heavens, just like the eagle.
So after this I beheld, and lo, the head that was in the midst suddenly appeared no more, like as the wings.
Second Esdras 11 verse 33. And after this I beheld, and lo, the head that was in the midst suddenly appeared no more, like as the wings. In other words, the virgin daughter of Babylon, USA, will be destroyed, most likely by the head on the right, Russia.
But there remained the two heads, which also in like sort ruled upon the earth, and over those that dwelt therein. And I beheld, and lo, the head on the right devoured it that was upon the left.
Second Esdras 11 verse 35. And I beheld, and lo, the head upon the right side devoured it that was upon the left side. Russia will also devour Europe, bring much death and destruction after it has brought death and destruction to the virgin daughter of Babylon. Jeremiah 49 verse 17 tells us that the head to the right will also be destroyed. And this will happen when Yeshua arrives. Jeremiah 49 verse 17. Also Edom shall be a desolation. Everyone that goeth by it shall be astonished, and shall hiss at all the plagues thereof. Jeremiah 49 verse 18. As in the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, and the neighbor cities thereof, saith the Lord, no man shall abide there, neither shall a son of man dwell in it. Speaking of Edom. And then Jeremiah 49 verse 19 tells us when the Lion of the tribe of Judah will arrive. Jeremiah 49 verse 19, behold, he shall come up like a lion from the swelling of the Jordan. The swelling of the Jordan refers to a particular day, which we will disclose at a later time, against the habitation of the strong. But I will suddenly make him run away from her. And who is a chosen man, that I may appoint over her? For who is like me, and who will appoint me the time? And who is that shepherd that will stand before me? The Lord, speaking of the Lion of the tribe of Judah, Yeshua, the chosen one, when he arrives. Jeremiah 49 verse 20. Therefore hear the counsel of the Lord that he hath taken against Edom, and his purposes that he hath purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. The destruction of Edom. Jeremiah 49 verse 21. The earth is moved, the noise of their fall. At the cry, the noise thereof was heard in the Red Sea. Everyone will know when Edom falls, because this is when peace will be taken from the earth. This will mark the end of the Edomite kingdoms, the end of Western hegemony. We are now at the time of the fall of the Edomite kingdoms, an end of Western hegemony, and this fall will begin with the arrival of the capstone, who will bring war, not peace. As he is the phoenix. The phoenix willingly offered itself to be burned by Apollo by setting fire to its nest. Apollo rewarded the bird by allowing it to be reborn into full youth and vigor as the flames burned. The Virgin Daughter of Babylon, USA, is about to be burned by Apollo. And it will begin with the treacherous deal when Saudi Arabia is introduced to the Abraham Accords, which will be brokered by the Virgin Daughter of Babylon, USA, and the King of Babylon, treacherous dealer and spoiler. And once you hear of this treacherous deal, it means Isaiah 21 is about to find manifestation. The treacherous dealer and spoiler, enemy from within. Isaiah 21:2, Isaiah 33:1. This is what will cause Amalek or Iran or Elam to attack Israel. Isaiah 21 verse 2. A grievous vision is declared unto me, the treacherous dealer, Donald Trump, dealeth treacherously by brokering the covenant with death, introducing Saudi Arabia to the Abraham Accords. And the spoiler spoileth Trump. Go up, O Elam, siege, O Media, all the signs thereof have I made to cease. It is after this treacherous deal that Elam or Amalek or Iran will attack Israel. Isaiah 21 verse 3. Therefore are my loins filled with pain, pangs have taken hold upon me as the pangs of a woman that travaileth. In other words, this happens just before the rapture. I was bowed down at the hearing of it. I was dismayed at the seeing of it. The question is, the seeing of what? By Israel. You see, Israel is distressed because she witnesses the fall of the Virgin Daughter of Babylon, USA. Isaiah 21 verse 9. And behold, here cometh a chariot of men with a couple of horsemen. And he answered and said, Babylon is fallen, and all the graven images of her gods he hath broken unto the ground. This will cause Israel great distress. This is why the Bible says, flee Neo-Egypt, Neo-Babylon, Neo-Sodom and Gomorrah, Edom, for her plagues will be many. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Saudi Arabia, Judah, and Ephraim, they will all pay the price, venturing into this cursed covenant with many, which will become the covenant with death when Saudi Arabia is introduced to it. And as we can see from this article, the 4th of February 2025, the treacherous dealer is already trying to deceive the princes of Judah. Alongside Netanyahu, Trump says Saudis not demanding Palestinian state for normalization. the treacherous dealer who will deceive the princes of Judah. And of course, Saudi Arabia insists. Saudi Arabia, in swift response to Trump, says no ties with Israel without Palestinian state, two-state solution. Also dated the 5th of February 2025. You see, way back in November 2024, we were already told. US officials suggest Trump will revive 2020 Israel-Palestinian peace plan. Said that the 2020 Palestinian-Israeli peace plan would satisfy Saudi Arabia's demand for normalization. A special envoy in the previous Trump administration suggested that an Israel-Palestinian peace plan considered in 2020, known as the Deal of the Century, or the Abraham Accords, may be revived. And of course, this Deal of the Century, or the Abraham Accords, suggests that the way forward would be to create a Palestinian state, two-state solution. This is what is described in the book of Hosea, chapter 5 and verse 10. The princes of Judah were like them that removed the bound, removed the landmark, the border, altered the territory. Therefore I will pour out my wrath upon them like water, saith the Lord. Because the Abraham Accords envision the creation of a Palestinian state, the dividing of Jehovah's land. This is what they refer to as the vision of peace. And this is what will take peace from the earth. Because the introduction of Saudi Arabia into this covenant with many, which will become the covenant of death once Saudi Arabia is introduced to it, will break Jehovah's original covenant with Abraham. Hosea 6 verse 7, but they like men have transgressed the covenant. There have they dealt treacherously against me. Because by entering into this Abraham Accords with Saudi Arabia, the princes of Judah will in effect be entering into a covenant with the God of Saudi Arabia and agreeing to the dividing of Jehovah's land, which in the eyes of Jehovah amounts to treachery, unfaithfulness. And once this deal is done, the wrath of Jehovah will come upon those who partake of it. Isaiah 33 verse 1, woe to thee that spoilest, and thou wast not spoiled, and dealest treacherously, and they dealt not treacherously with thee. When thou shalt cease to spoil, thou shalt be spoiled. And when thou shalt make an end to deal treacherously, they shall deal treacherously with thee. They being the enemies of the virgin daughter of Babylon, those from the north. And when thou shalt make an end to deal treacherously, they shall deal treacherously with thee. Speaking of the enemies of the virgin daughter of Babylon, who will attack her by surprise. Hosea 5 verse 5. And the pride of Israel doth testify to his face. Therefore shall Israel and Ephraim, the virgin daughter of Babylon, USA, fall in their iniquity. Judah, those who are currently in the land of Israel, who rule from Jerusalem, also shall fall with them. You see, this whole process began with the advent of the rider on the white horse, Donald Trump, described in Revelation 6 verses 1 and 2, the false Christ, Messiah figure, spoken of by Yeshua in Matthew 24 verses 4 to 5. You see, it was the accursed Abraham Accords that ignited the Jeremiah 14:12 judgments, the footman judgments. And now in this year of the Jubilee, when Saudi Arabia is introduced to the Abraham Accords, which will turn the covenant with many into the covenant with death, the red horse will ride, as described in Revelation 6 verses 3 to 4. Wars, Matthew 24 verse 7a. And then the black horse, famine, Revelation 6 verses 5 and 6. Famines, Matthew 24 verses 7b. And then the pale horse, death, Revelation 6 verses 7 and 8. Death, Matthew 24 verses 7b and 8. And then martyrdom, Revelation 6 verses 9 to 11. Martyrdom described in Matthew 24 verse 9. And then will come the rapture. And those who are raptured are described in the book of Revelation 7, the 144,000 and the great multitude. This is also described in Matthew 24 verse 31, when the elect are gathered. And then will come worldwide chaos, Revelation 6 verses 12 to 17, when Yeshua comes down in wrath. Worldwide chaos, Matthew 24 verses 29 and 30. You see, from the red horse down to martyrdom is what is referred to as the tribulation. And according to Yeshua, it will only last 10 days. It is after the tribulation, birth pangs, labor pains, that the rapture, or the birthing of the elect bride and the man-child into the heavenly Jerusalem will take place. So, the rider on a white horse came with his accursed Abraham Accords, which ignited the footman judgments of pestilence, C19, famine, food shortages from the disruption of supply chains, and then the war in Ukraine, the footman judgments of Jeremiah 14, verse 12, inscribed on the Abraham Accords commemorative coin, which speaks of, I will give you lasting peace in this place, which was an invocation of judgment. And now, in the year of the Yovel, the horseman judgment will ride.
I think peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia is not only feasible, I think it's going to happen. I think if we had another half a year in your first term, it would have already happened.
True. Many more. I agree. Many more nations.
I think you can't prejudge and pre-guess how we'll achieve it, but I'm committed to achieving it. And I know the president is committed to achieving it, and I think the Saudi leadership is interested to achieve it. So we'll give it a good shot, and I think we'll succeed.
Of course, we already know that we are on the brink of nuclear war. Russia has stepped up nuclear threats to the West and tensions over Ukraine. Iran could have nukes ready within months amid fears of all-out war with Israel. Kim Jong-un has threatened to nuke America and South Korea amidst sky-high tensions with Seoul. Nuclear superpower China encircled Taiwan in new war games. It is just a matter of time. And what will ignite this catastrophe? Well, once you hear them say peace and safety, then sudden destruction shall come upon them as a woman in travail, and they shall not escape. This covenant with many, which will soon become a covenant with death, a transition from Daniel 9:27 to Isaiah 28 verse 15, will ignite the horsemen judgments of war, famine, and death. And Hosea 5 verse 7 tells us exactly when this attack on the participants in this treacherous deal will take place. Hosea 5 verse 7, they have dealt treacherously against the Lord, for they have begotten strange children. Speaking of Israel, joining herself to the God of Saudi Arabia, joining herself to death, and giving birth to strange children. Now shall a month, Strong's H2320, Kodesh, speaking of the first day of the month, the new moon, devour them. The word there is alkal, means to burn up, to consume them with their portions. The word there is kailek, speaking of territory, a parcel of land. In other words, at the new moon, first day of the month, Ephraim will be attacked, and then Judah will also be attacked. Saudi Arabia will also be attacked. And this will be a surprise attack, and it will take place at the new moon, the 29th day of the month of Adar, the 29th day of March, the evening, which marks the beginning of the month of Nisan. This is when the red horse will ride, beginning the 10 days of tribulation, or birth pangs, or labor pains. And how do we know that the tribulation will last for 10 days? Well, Yeshua tells us. Yeshua speaking to the church in Revelation 2 verse 10 states the following. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life at the coronation. So, according to this, the tribulation, or birth pangs, or labor pains, will last 10 days, after which will come the rapture and the coronation. Of course, this corresponds with scripture. So, the tribulation begins on the first day of Nisan and it lasts for 10 days. Now, it's interesting that in Daniel's vision, Daniel chapter 10, it speaks of the angel appearing to him after he makes supplication. The angel appears on the 24th day of Nisan and tells Daniel that he's been doing battle with the prince of Persia for 21 days. And he tells Daniel that the vision that he brings is for the end times. So, 21 days before the 24th of Nisan brings us to the first day or the third day of Nisan, first day of April. This is when the angel begins his battle with the Prince of Persia. An indication that Iran will attack Israel at about this time after the virgin daughter of Babylon has fallen. Isaiah 21. And then, of course, the battle continues until Yeshua arrives and rescues his bride on the 10th day of Nisan. And then Satan is cast out of heaven. War breaks out between Michael, his angels, and Satan and his angels. And Satan is cast to the earth. This is when Michael stands up. Remember, the angel tells Daniel that Michael comes to his aid. And so the wars continue on the earth. And then, of course, the angel appears to Daniel at the equivalent of the 24th day of Nisan, which will be equivalent to the 22nd day of April. And then the wars continue. So Yeshua rescues his bride in the middle of this time of great turmoil at the end of 10 days of tribulation on the 10th day of Nisan, 5785, the 8th of April, 2025. And so the tribulation will begin the first day of Nisan. Luke 21 verses 10 and 11. Then said he unto them, Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and great earthquakes, or seismos, a shaking, commotion, a great disturbance, shall be in diverse places. This will mark the beginning of the time of tribulation. This is also the equivalent of the time the bear will be asked to arise and devour much flesh. Daniel 7 verse 5, and behold another beast, a second like a bear, and it raised up itself on one side by ripping out 3 ribs from its neighbor, Ukraine, the regions of Donbass, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson. And it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. World War III, when the Russian bear arises.
Umran Bayt al-Maqdis, when Jerusalem is center stage and flourishing, built up. Kharabu Yathrib. At that time, look to Medina and you see Medina in forlorn dissolution. Nobody, no event in Medina, nothing. It plays absolutely no role whatsoever, even in Arab affairs. Kharabu Yathrib, Khuruj al-Malhama. When that occurs, which is where we are now, then look for the Malhama. The Malhama is a great war. The Malhama is not just a great war. It's a war like no war has ever been. None. First time. What kind of war will it be? The Malhama. Hadith in Sahih Bukhari that 99 out of every 100 of the combatants will die, will be killed.
riding of the red horse will take peace from the earth. This is what will bring about the fall of Edom, the end of Western hegemony. The world will never be the same after this point. And once the eagle falls, once Edom falls, the earth will be full of total and utter chaos. Remember that the children of Israel are currently in what is referred to as Galut Edom, the Edomite exile. Galut Edom is the name given to the fourth and final exile of the Jewish people. And of course, in these last days, the Father wishes to regather his people to the land. Therefore, he will bring calamities upon the Edomite land, which will cause his people to return, to make aliyah. This, of course, will be the time of the sword, a ramfire, a saber or large sword, usually used by the jihadis, because it is at this time that the Mohammedans will declare global jihad. And then the black horse will also ride. Revelation 6, verse 5. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. Revelation 6, verse 6. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. Speaking of a time of great scarcity, Luke 21, verse 10, and famines, limos, scarcity of food, dearth, famine, hunger, starvation. Of course, Lemus is the goddess of starvation, hunger, and famine in Greek mythology. And then the green horse will ride, the Chloros horse. Revelation 6, verses 7 and 8. And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, Come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale Chloros horse, and his name that sat on him was Death. Perhaps the reason why this horse is described as Chloros, green, could be because it's referring to biohazard, fallout from nuclear war. Luke 21, verse 11, and pestilences, limos, plague, disease, pestilence, radiation poisoning. Which brings about lots of death, represented by Thanatos, God, death. And then will come Revelation 6, verse 8. And hell, Hades, Pluto followed with him, and power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, speaking of the virgin daughter of Babylon, USA, to kill with sword, with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. Hades, Pluto, lord of the underworld, and keeper of souls, because there will be lots of death at this time. Hades, lord of the underworld, depicted here with his wild beasts. And so out of this time of chaos, time of war, in this year of the Jubilee, 5785, which began October 2024 and will last till October 2025, will rise the third beast, the winged, four-headed leopard.
And it is after this chaos that the nations of the Central Asian Islamic nations from Khorasan will rise. The four-headed leopard out of Khorasan, which is formed from this region. Khorasan, the land of the snow leopard, hence the description of the beasts, the leopard with four heads. The Great War, Al-Malhama Al-Kubra. It is after this war that these nations will rise, when the Mohammedans declare global jihad. And we're seeing the genesis, the birth of the army of the Mahdi, the black flags of ISIS, Khorasan province, the army of the Mahdi. How ISIS got its flag, the centuries-old apocalyptic prophecies behind a new symbol of global jihad, written way back 22nd September 2015. The black flags. Legends of the Black Flag and the Muslim savior, the Mahdi, first circulated during the reign of the Umayyad dynasty, which ruled the Islamic Empire from Damascus in the 7th and 8th centuries CE. The dynasty's founders, the Umayyad clan, had seized the caliphate from Muhammad's son-in-law and grandson, which infuriated many Muslims. People unhappy with Umayyad rule circulated prophecies of a man of the Prophet's family who would return justice to the world. They called the man the Mahdi, Arabic for the rightly guided one. Many of the prophecies envisioned the Mahdi appearing during the end of days to lead the final battles against the infidels, the non-Muslims. The four-headed leopard with the four wings, the Central Asian republics from Khorasan. The Islamic State ended the explanation of its flag's design with a prayer. We ask God, praise be He, to make this flag the sole flag for all Muslims. We are certain that it will be the flag of the people of Iraq when they go to aid the Mahdi at the Holy House of God. The house of God is the Kaaba in Mecca, the holiest shrine in Islam, and the Mahdi is the savior who Muslims believe will appear there in the years leading up to the apocalypse. The Islamic State was signaling that its flag was not only the symbol of its government and the herald of a future caliphate, it was the harbinger of the final battle at the end of days. Once the lion is subdued, out of that chaos, the four-headed leopard would rise. If you see the black banners coming, go to them immediately, even if you must crawl over ice, because indeed among them is the Caliph, the Mahdi. It is said that black flags from the east will rise. Black banners will come out of Khorasan. Nothing will stop them until they are raised in Jerusalem.
This is when the Mohammedans will once again hunt down the Christians and slaughter many. Matthew 24 verse 9. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Matthew 24 verses 10 and 11. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another, and many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. Matthew 24 verses 12 and 13. And because iniquity shall abound, lawlessness, sin, because of the chaos, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And all of this will take place when the four winds strive upon the great.
Strive upon the sea of humanity. We're about to witness once again the rise of a radical Islamic jihad. And once the chaos begins, they will once again slaughter many. As the Bible states, the days of tribulation, the days of sorrow, as Yeshua described to us, Matthew 24.
Matthew 24 verse 14. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. And the end comes when the fifth seal is opened, and the martyrs who have been slaughtered are seen under the altar. Revelation 6 verse 9. And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God, and for the testimony which they held, the testimony of the Lord Jesus Christ. Revelation 6 verse 10. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? Revelation 6 verse 11. And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. And so once again, Revelation 2 verse 10 tells us, fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life after the rapture. And so, as I said, the tribulation begins on the first day of Nisan, which begins the evening of the 29th day of the month of Adar, the 29th of March, and it'll last for 10 days until the 10th of Nisan, when the Lion of the tribe of Judah will arrive. The 10th of Nisan, of course, which speaks of the swelling of the Jordan, the day Joshua took the great multitude and the 12 stones out of the bedrock of the Jordan, marking the day of the rapture, the day they crossed over into the promised land, the day we will cross over into the heavenly Jerusalem.
You see, once before, over 2,000 years ago, he came as a gentle sacrificial lamb to pay for our sins. When he returns in the near future, he is coming with great wrath and anger as a terrible, fierce judge to judge the earth. So please, make peace with him. Now, he is coming, and he is angry. And how do I make peace with him? I hear you ask. Well, it's actually as easy as ABC. A. Admit that you're a sinner. As Romans chapter 3 verse 23 tells us, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And Romans 6 verse 23 tells us, for the wages of sin is death. B. Believe that Jesus paid for your sin at the cross. Romans 5 verse 8. But God demonstrates his own love for us while we were still sinners. Christ died for us. And Romans 6 verse 23 tells us, but the free gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus. And finally, C. Confess that Jesus is the Son of God and commit your life to him. As Romans 10 verse 9 tells us that if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. And you will become part of the glorious bride. We have little time. All the signs are here. The four winds are here. Give your life to Yeshua. Thank you very much for listening to me. I remain your faithful watchman, standing on the wall, blowing the horn as loudly as I can. And I am out.